The Superstar panel react to the left's latest bid to destroy Boris Johnson shortly, but time now for our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier. And Prince Harry's emotional revelation yesterday that his mounting legal battles were causing him strain give new context to the admission that they're all being fought in the name of Meghan Markle. So this is the moment he told the High Court that he only started pursuing a legal case against the owner of the Daily Mirror in the year he married his wife.
When did you first go to solicitors to seek advice about a possible claim about Mirror Group newspapers?
I bumped into my lawyer, David Sherborne, in France. This meeting happened in 2018.
So prior to you bumping into him, you hadn't sought advice?
No, not at all. It was a way to put the abuse, intrusion and hate that was coming towards me and my wife.
But as Harry self-destructs alone, notably absent Meghan appears to be carving her own future by signing with the top talent agency and rumoured plans to pocket a £300,000 a post when she relaunches that lifestyle blog she used to have called The Tig. So, Lady C, do we think Meghan is plotting a future away from Harry as he naively fights a mountain of legal cases and she says, nothing to do with me?
Well, I think it's a very sound tactic, don't you? She certainly has, she's set him up for failure no matter what and herself for success no matter what. I think it's a very interesting ploy. Just goes to show what a devoted wife can do when she has her interests as opposed to her husband's interests at stake.
Because, Phil, I've actually written a column about this for the Mail Online tonight. I just think that if Meghan was a responsible wife, if she actually really cared about Harry, and this wasn't just some sort of power play in terms of their relationship and her future political career, she would have given him a whisper in his ear and said, H, this isn't working for you. Just stop now.
I'm sure she's been egging him on down good evening, and it's become fairly obvious in the last week, I think, that this court case about the Mirror has got very little to do with phone hacking 10, 20, 30 years ago and everything to do with their sense of victimhood today. It's just really a continuation of the Netflix show, of Spare, of the Oprah Winfrey. It's just another way of getting their message across. I think it became personal with Meghan. I think she was after Piers Morgan and various other people. And I think it's a shot across the bows of the media generally. But he hasn't produced, as we know, a shred of evidence. Incredibly, I mean, there's still people out there, and maybe they're right, I don't know, who still think he might win this case. But we're not going to know for several weeks, if not months. And, of course, in the meantime, he's going to plough on with the other cases against Associated and against News Group. So I don't think he's going to stop. But when the bills start coming in, if he does start losing the cases, they might start to think, perhaps we've made a mistake. But at the moment, the jury, not the literal jury, but the metaphoric jury, is still out.
Well, Lady C, look, I will lose a lot of faith in our justice system if he wins this case because there was no evidence. That became very clear. And look, you're no fan of the Mirror Group. You know, you've had your own legal run-ins with them, so it's not like you're a supporter of the Mirror. But, Lady C, he shouldn't win after what we've seen these last 2 days. He didn't have a scrap of evidence.
If Mr. Justice Fancourt finds on the evidence and as according to the law, Harry cannot win. On the other hand, if Mr. Justice Fancourt has political sympathies that accord with Harry's and he wishes to bring in a privacy law, not through the legislative process, but through the legal process, Harry might well win some. There is no way on this earth, unless Mr. Justice Fancourt is totally corrupt, which I'm sure he is not, that Harry can win hands down. He might win 1 or 2, but the likelihood of winning substantially is very remote, even if Mr. Justice Fancourt is in favour of Harry's political agenda. Because make no mistake about it, this is not just about defamation. And Harry is using things that have happened to him to try to shut down the press and to try to erode freedom of speech in this country. And he has gone about it in actually a very clever way, because if he wins or if he loses, he can say he has positioned himself to be a supporter of the rights of the individual versus a malignant press. Except, of course, the press has not been malignant to Harry. And you're absolutely right. I mean, a few weeks ago, I settled with the Mirror. They had to cough up hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I tell you, they would have had to cough up they'd have had to have coughed up a lot more if they felt that they were going to lose this case. The fact that they have fought it and continue to fight it means that they have been advised that they will most likely win it. And I cannot see how it is possible, if the law is applied, that Harry can win his part of the case. But remember, he's only a part of the case. He's one of many people involved in this case.
Yes, indeed, and it is complex. Look, I want to talk to you about Stephen Glover. We had him on earlier this hour in The Clash. He's on the front page of the Daily Mail today, saying the comment that Harry made that our government is now at rock bottom is the final straw for King Charles. He has to strip Harry of his titles now. So I'm going to put this question to both of you. Phil Dampier, is Stephen Glover right? Does King Charles have to take action now?
I think Stephen Glover's right, but I don't think Charles will do it. I think Charles is going to stick to his guns. He's had this policy all the way through that he doesn't want to make things worse. I think it's straight out of his mother's playbook. And I think he's going to stick to it. I mean, I think we all might disagree with it. We all might think that Stephen Glover's right. But I mean, unless he makes some other comments, and he really does make another comment. I mean, I think when he made the comment about the government being at rock bottom, he was really saying that the government was in league with the press. That was the point he was making. If he was making a more general point that the government was completely, the wrong sort of political government and he didn't agree with a lot of their policies, then we really would be in dangerous territory. But I think to give him just a slight bit of leeway, I think that was the point he was making. They were in bed with the press, not a wider point about the government being a bad one.
Lady C, do you think King Charles has to finally take formal action against Harry and strip him of his title?
Well, may I say, first of all, I love Phil, and normally I agree with him, but in this instance I don't. I think that Harry has positioned himself very left as opposed to left of centre. We have a centrist government.
Yeah, he's hardly.
I think that his pot shot against the government is an overall political agenda. And I also think that Charles will not, because Charles is doing the typical thing that parents who love their drug-addicted and drug-damaged children do. Let go and let God. Do not intervene. Let it all play out. Now, this, of course, is the responsible thing to do on a personal level. Is it a responsible thing for a king to do on a national level? That is a moot point. I do not see Charles, and Charles cannot strip Harry of his peerage. He can only strip him of his princely rank. He can do that with a stroke of the pen. George V did it to Prince Alistair of Connaught with a stroke of the pen. It can be done, but he can't strip him of the peerage. That has to be done by Parliament. And I don't think there is much of a will in either political party to strip Harry of his title.
No, they don't want to go there.
The Labour Party will not want to strip him because, remember, Meghan is a woman of colour and therefore blah, blah, blah. And the Conservative Party is not going to want to strip him either because they don't want to antagonise the King and they don't want to antagonise their supporters of colour. So I think it's a political hot potato that nobody wants to handle. But I do think Charles should actually insist that either Harry shuts up or he is going to make Harry put his titles into abeyance, which would be the alternative. So he's not entirely stripped of them. They're put into abeyance so that he cannot use them. So they're suspended. That's what abeyance means. And
what a good idea.
Knows
what a good idea. Lady Colin Campbell, you've been with us all week. Fascinating analysis. Phil Dampier, thank you too. We will speak to you both next week.